Right then, let's give this video malarkey a go. My name is kind of Southwell, TalkNorwichCity. I work primarily on the website, but I do pop up on this channel every so often, and I'm back again. Today I'm talking about Norwich City season, although it wasn't the initial plan. The initial plan obviously was to go up to Oakwell. I was the only one out of Jack, Chris and myself going up there, so I was going to produce a match review in the aftermath of that game, but sadly with the Arctic snap, which has sort of infected the country, here I am in my bedroom talking to a phone about Norwich City's season, and what a bizarre season it's been, really. You know, if we break it down and look at it, there's a lot of sub-narratives, you know, within sort of the grand narrative. But yeah, it's among supporters at least, it's felt a lot more positive, which I think has come with the progressive style of football which Norwich are trying to implement slowly but surely, which I'll come on to, and also I think the academy prospects coming through and the better use of the academy. You know, if we rewind sort of a year ago, we had Alan Irvine in charge saying there's no one in this academy to make the step up. Well, Jamal Lewis and James Maddison, you know, okay, bought in from Coventry, but has, you know, played for the under-23s and been out on loan and whatnot, have stepped up and been wonderful, you know, really, really wonderful. And I think that sort of emergence of those two players, along with a side which is younger, a side which seems to resonate more with supporters and has broken down this sort of this distance that existed last year between players and supporters, has made it feel a lot more positive. I mean, Tim Close's header against Ipswich, Nelson Oliveira's late equaliser against Wolves, you know, more recently, being sort of amongst some really sort of standout, you know, moments, which have mainly centred around James Maddison, to be fair. But yeah, you look at it and Norwich are worse off in the table. They sit 14th, 8 points off the playoffs. Don't really look like they're going anywhere this season if we're realistic with ourselves, unless they produce some sort of title-winning form, which I think, you know, I can't see. You know, if any game sort of epitomised Norwich City's season, it was last Saturday against Bolton, where they knocked and they huffed and they puffed and they didn't break Bolton down, mainly in part due to Bolton's brilliant defensive play, in part due to Norwich's poor offensive play in the second period and lack of brutality when finishing. But yeah, it's been interesting in terms of the progression of this side. I think, you know, I recall sort of standing outside Carrow Road before Christmas, I think it was, when Norwich were beaten 2-1 at Carrow Road by Brentford and coming out and saying this is a side that will struggle to do anything in this division this year, and even looked like they'd end up at the wrong end of the table due to how they were playing. You know, they were consistently inconsistent. Defensively, they were leaking goals. Offensively, they weren't scoring enough, and teams were coming to Carrow Road and getting points far too easily, which I think they still are to a degree. But yeah, it seems to have, from that point onwards, seems to have progressed massively, I think, in terms of how Norwich are improving. I think they're improving game by game in terms of the style, and it's interesting because we don't really know what Daniel Farke's end philosophy looks like. Is it, you know, what we saw in the first half against Bolton? If so, I think all supporters are majorly excited by that. Or is it this sort of lateral, slow, lethargic build-up play? Who knows? It's interesting because we've got this sort of production line which started in the summer, and you know, it's hard to know how far we are along that before seeing a final product of some description. And when we do see that final product, how do we know that? You know, I think people looked at it in October, November when Norwich were winning 10, you know, we're unbeaten in 10 and going, this is the philosophy. It's a defensively sort of pragmatic setup and nicking goals on the break and then defending. It was almost streetwise. It was championship sort of steady in that regard. And then yeah, it broke down for whatever reason, and now Norwich seem to be implementing this sort of possession-based style, which is defensively solid. And I think that was the aim for this year, wasn't it? Being a more defensively solid unit. And okay, people would have liked to have seen Norwich challenging a bit more, sort of in the upper reaches of the table. But I actually think in terms of where they are, is probably fair enough. Defensively solid, offensively not good enough. I think offensively they're too intricate. They try and be too clever in the final third. They're pretty good up to the final third, actually, and then they almost overplay and they don't have enough width, or they don't have a bit of differentiation, say an injection of pace or something which can sort of change games and change how they attack, which I think is the issue which needs sorting out. And if you look at Farke's track record, the defence he sorted out, and now he's just got to sort out that offence. And let's not forget, this is a side which is had more sort of ingoings and outgoings than any other side in the division. This is a side which is a lot younger. It's got a lot of unfinished sort of products in it, and I think as a whole it's a whole big unfinished project which is sort of ongoing. And you look at it next year and it's tough because players like Harrison Reed, Angus Gunn, James Maddison maybe, these are players who have been embedded with Farke's DNA in terms of his philosophy, and next year don't look like they're going to be here. So then you've got a whole new bunch of players going to come in and having to learn again, and you've got this ever-ending sort of developing cycle. And I think it is just going to be a case of let's see how it develops, let's see how it goes in terms of what we get next season, because we could get a refined, well-oiled Norwich City side. I think it is just going to be a case of let's see how it develops, let's see how it goes in terms of what we get next season, because we could get a refined, well-oiled Norwich City side, or we could get one which has been akin to this year, which has been inconsistent, lateral, and offensively struggling. But let's hope for our sake we get a side which play good football, play quicker football with a better tempo, which I think Norwich have recently. I think that first half against Bolton sort of epitomises what Norwich are trying to do. The second half, however, sort of showed the deficiencies and sort of the implications of this style, and how if it goes wrong it can break down so easily, and how Norwich can look so average really, and with funds and finances being how they are, which everyone knows, it could be difficult. But I think it's a journey which, if Norwich supporters stick with, and if they believe in, and if the players believe in it, I think it will come good, and I genuinely believe that. So yeah, I think it's a case of wait and see. And on that regard, I'm gonna finish this video by once again plugging the website TalkNorwichCity.com. After every game, I tend to sit down and write an analysis, I suppose you'd call it, of the game. Obviously midweek games you have to give me a bit of time because I need sleep. But yeah, check over there for all sort of written content if you prefer that, and obviously if you prefer the written stuff, what is it these YouTubers say? Subscribe and like, isn't it? Do something like that. I hope this wasn't too bad. Obviously I'm sorry it wasn't at Oakwell, but I wasn't going to travel up to Oakwell for no game, obviously. And yeah, we'll probably see you again on Tuesday night following that game, and enjoy the snow, build lots of igloos, and yeah, have lots of fun.